Okay, we're live.
All right, thank you. This meeting is being held fully remotely and is being recorded and live streamed. And because this is a school committee meeting, we're going to call this meeting to order, and I need to do a roll call attendance. So please state your name and say you're present. Mr. Osceola.
Okay, Joe Osceola, present.
Ms. Zebret Long.
Jackie Zebret Long, present.
Ms. Stout.
Sharon Stout, present.
And Mr. Russell.
Gary Russell, present.
Thank you. And is there anybody else from the school committee that I missed logging in? Okay, seeing none, and Nancy Scott, I'm present. So we're going to call the meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight and remind everyone that the purpose of tonight's school committee forum is to gather public input on the recommendation from Dr. Carpenter to reopen the Monomoy schools for the 2021-2022 school year. The school committee will be voting on his plan at our next meeting. As a matter of housekeeping, I would like to remind everyone to please keep your microphones muted at this time. When the public forum starts or the public comment portion starts, we'll call on you and you can unmute at that time, but please keep your microphones muted. The Monomoy Regional School Committee is looking forward to hearing your thoughts in a respectful manner this evening. This forum is being live streamed and recorded, and it will be posted to the website after the meeting concludes. The primary objective of our committee is to provide a safe and healthy educational environment for all students and all staff while keeping as many students as possible in school buildings engaged in productive in-person learning. This is a challenging time for everyone, and there are many unknowns. As a committee, we are accessing the most recent CDC, Mass Department of Public Health, Academy of Pediatrics, the DESE, and local boards of health recommendations regarding COVID-19, masking, and the reopening of our schools. All plans will be reviewed and updated as COVID-19 data and public health information continue to evolve. And plans are subject to applicable bargaining rules under Mass General Law, Chapter 150E. At our last meeting on Wednesday, Dr. Carpenter presented his in-depth reopening plan to the school committee. I hope you take the time to watch his full presentation through the recording available on the district website. Dr. Carpenter is not going to present the entire plan this evening, and I did ask him to provide a brief overview for us tonight. So our first order of business is Dr. Carpenter's presentation.
Thanks, Nancy. So what I'll do is I'll just share my screen briefly so that people can see the slides. I think I've got 6 slides that sort of summarize everything that I was talking about. So just first of all, in terms of vaccination, the American Association of Pediatrics, the Centers for Disease Control, and the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, along with the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, all go and recommend that individuals who are able to get vaccinated get the vaccine. Currently, it's ages 12 and older that are eligible, but there's a lot of information that the state has been putting out on the Trust the Facts, Get the Vax that's available. Or if you're concerned about the vaccine, I'd strongly recommend having conversations with your primary care provider. Second, in terms of masks, the American Association of Pediatrics, the Center for Disease Control, and the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, along with the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, all are recommending that at this time there is some form of masking in schools. The question is, what the guidelines are around the masking. The American Association of Pediatrics and CDC are basically saying that everybody should be wearing masks unless there's a medical reason why they shouldn't. The Mass Department of Public Health and DESE are suggesting that masks well, could be considered optional if students have already been vaccinated. And the same with staff that have already been vaccinated. I shared with the school committee that I think at this moment in time, given how the Delta variant has been going through our region, that we should look at shifting towards the DESE recommendation when we see the COVID transmission begin to drop off once again. But at least at the moment, in Barnstable County, there's rather significant COVID transmission going on. In terms of buses, on buses, masks will be required for the time being because there is currently a federal public health order on all means of public transportation, whether you're on a bus, a train, or a plane. There's a federal order in place that requires masking. We will once again be asking parents if you're able to transport. It will help us just to keep the number of students down on the buses. Just again, trying to go and have the density of students on the buses a little bit lower. If parents can help us out, that would be fantastic. At the middle school and elementary level, we have assigned seats on those buses, and at the high school, there aren't assigned seats. We will have the windows open when the weather allow for more air circulation on those buses. In terms of spacing, we will follow the recommendations for the CDC that will maintain at least 3-foot spacing between students and more when our rooms allow. I want to emphasize that just because there's 3-foot spacing doesn't mean that we're not going to encourage small group work. So we had a lot of small group work that was happening in-person learning last year. We'll be having that again this year. Also, the last year there were limits or things that we couldn't do in terms of course and band, and we will be having course and band that will indoors. We'll just be holding them in spaces so that there's at least 10-foot distance between the individuals in those. Clearly with lunches, masks aren't required while you're eating. The lunches will be back in the cafeterias, not the classrooms. We have been doing a grab and go, which really helps all the students who want a breakfast. They can grab it as they're walking in the door. So we'll be doing that grab and go breakfast. We'll be encouraging outdoor dining when it's possible, weather permitting. And at the high school, for those that have high school students, JOSM will be back. And that also helps us provide some supports for students during that lunch block, but it will also have students spread out through the building, so there won't be as many students in the cafeteria during the lunch block at the high school. In terms of quarantining, one of the things that we want to do is to follow the state's recommendation on what's called a test and stay. So we know that given COVID, just like last year, there will be times that either a student or a staff member is positive and has been in the building, and we need to go and have our nurses then do some contact tracing to see who was considered to be a close contact. For close contacts, the state has put in place something called test and stay, which will follow those protocols. Basically, what happens is the individual for a 7-day period, but it would be about 5 school days because there's a weekend in between, and that's 7 days somewhere. Would, as long as they're asymptomatic, so they've been exposed, they would have the ability to come into school first thing in the morning. They would have one of these Binex, now rapid antigen tests, and would determine if the student is having COVID present in, and if they are, we would only send them home if they're testing positive with one of the antigen tests, or if they're symptomatic. So it allows us to go and really have a lot more students in school in person and not see entire classrooms not be in school because one student in an entire class was positive. We'll also be following CDC guidelines when it comes to quarantining. So the CDC has quarantining guidelines on how long one stays out, but there's also an option to come back earlier if you've tested negative after 5 days of quarantining. So that's the gist of what the recommendation was to the school committee. But I want to also emphasize that recommendations and guidelines are going to be reevaluated as the year progresses. So my hope is that we see COVID transmission rates drop down. We see the number of students and staff that are vaccinated increase, and we see that we're in a place where we can go and get to a point where at least those that are vaccinated don't have masks, and hopefully soon get to a place where everybody can be back in school without masks.
That was good and brief.
We were
Well
shooting
done.
for that.
Thank you. Okay, so next up on our agenda is public comments. And while this is not a business meeting of the school committee, it is still a posted school committee meeting. And I also would like to respect everyone's desire to speak regarding the issue of Dr. Carpenter's reopening plans. To that end, everyone is to limit their comments to 3 minutes or less this evening, similar to our regular school committee meetings public comment. We don't have a time limit on the meeting length, and in respect for everyone's time, I would like to attempt to keep the meeting at 2 hours if possible. Meeting started shortly after 6, so shortly after 8, or 2 hours from now, 8:15, but 2 hours is a good amount of time. That being said, if we have an abundance of speakers who haven't had a chance to speak at 8 p.m., 8:15, I will reconsider the length of the meeting. I don't want people to go away tonight without having an opportunity to be heard at some point, either tonight or another night. And finally, I need everyone to please understand that this forum is for the committee to listen to your thoughts. We do not have any discussion topics on tonight's agenda, and therefore we cannot discuss or respond to any questions this evening. If you have questions, please feel free to email them, please feel free to email them directly to the committee, and our email addresses are posted on the website. As a reminder, please keep your microphones muted, and I will make note of people who raise their hands, and I will call on you. To raise your hand, if you're on a mobile device, click on the 3 dots in the bottom right or the top right corner and select raise hand. If you are on a computer, locate the reactions option at the bottom of your screen and select raise hand. If anyone happens to be calling in, I believe some people are, you press *9 to raise your hand. When I call on you, please be sure to unmute your mic, state your full name and your address before beginning your comments. So open up the public comments.
I'm trying to hear this.
Could you please mute your mic, Kim? And I see George Sopel. You can unmute and begin your comments.
Thank you, Nancy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right. So I just wanted to thank, first of all, you guys for giving everybody the opportunity to speak.
Excuse me a second, George. Could you just state your address, please?
Sorry.
Okay.
My name's George Sopel. I'm a teacher at the high school. I live in Dennis, Mass, 11 Flack Street, Dennis, Mass. And I teach at the high school.
Thank you.
So again, just wanted to give a very important thank you to those who put so much research and objectivity and thought into developing this plan. Personally, I experienced some significant medical issues several years ago that put me in the hospital for a good period of time, not COVID related, but I'm particularly sensitive to how quickly and significantly someone who is in good health can be impacted by a medical issue. I know from talking to teachers in other schools, from following the news, et cetera, that our administration, is really doing its best to keep everybody safe. I don't sense there's any, politics to it. I think it's purely research and science and safety based. So I'm very grateful to that. And just briefly, I wanted to, speak in favor of the plan and masks. And the two reasons I would say are there's too much we don't know right now because we're living this pandemic in real time. We see the Delta variant, there's a Lambda variant, there's, God knows what else out there that we don't know. So to me, it's far better to err on the side of caution. And I know it's inconvenient to wear a mask. I know it creates a lot of challenges that we lived through at the high school last year. But I think it's important not only that we do it to save ourselves, but also, this is the last point I wanted to make, is it's an example of setting a modeling kindness and selflessness to our students. So we know that there are many people, myself included, that are vaccinated that probably are not going to be hopefully susceptible to it, but there are those that, that probably are more vulnerable that will be in our building. And so I think not only is it prudent to go slowly, but it's also a good way to, we talk about social emotional learning and compassion and empathy, et cetera. And I think it's a good way to model that for our students. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Next up is Katie Cutter. You can unmute, state your name and your address, please.
Thank you, Nancy. My name is Katie Cutter. I live on Charles Road in Harwich. I have one child at Harwich Elementary School and one child entering the middle school. Tonight, I wanted to speak in support of the proposed reopening plan. The emphasis on continually adapting to our current community statistics and circumstances feels sensible and reassuring to me. I appreciate the changes made to last year's guidelines. They feel like safe and reasonable steps toward normalcy. Since we are not at a quote unquote normal place yet. However, I think the proposed precautions make sense. Again, with the emphasis on adapting, I think these precautions will inevitably change as our circumstances do. I believe everyone's priority here lies in the overall well-being of our children, and I appreciate the time, thought, and dedication that our school district puts into making this very difficult situation easier on the students and the families. So thank you for your time and for providing this platform for us to share our thoughts and concerns.
Thank you, Katie. Next is Adam Lang. Please state your name and your address.
Hi, Adam Lang, Oak Hill Road, Chatham. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I think we could all agree that not wearing a mask is a good thing, whether it be a student or an adult. We're now being asked to defend mandatory masking with very little data to support that mandate. I was fascinated by the doctor's reopening recommendations, the 37-slide presentation. I just want to reference a few things that I believe is not supported with factual data or science. Chart 22 talks about protecting individuals from hospitalization and death. All right, this is the solution looking for a problem. Maybe in an elderly home, that would be a statement you might put in your presentation for recommendations, not at a school, sir, okay? We have very few, almost zero statistically, deaths of children from COVID and very few hospitalizations. The Delta variant is even weaker than prior, right? So I take, again, it's a solution looking for a problem. Chart 17 states we did not have evidence of student-to-student transmission because of our masking and distancing practices. I don't know of any controlled experiments you did within the school to look at social distancing and masking and the effect of either one of those strategies. I just haven't seen anything like that. Chart 12, because the state left the decision up to local districts and school committees, we can anticipate vocal opposition from some that don't want anyone in schools wearing masks. Sir, I can tell you from my perspective and the people I talk to that are against mandatory masking, this is about medical freedom. So This is about choice for parents, masking their child if they feel that's something that they want to do. I don't know of anyone that said no one can wear a mask if they want it in school. And lastly, chart 5, the P-Town cluster reference. It sounds like the high infection rate in P-Town was driven by an annual event called Bear Week. And I'm really not sure this scenario applies to a school setting. I'm not sure this reference belongs in your presentation, as a replication is highly unlikely outside of Bear Week. Thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you, Adam. Next up, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I am a phonetical pronouncer, so if I butcher your names, I sincerely apologize. Please correct me. Danielle Intoni, can you unmute and state your name and your address, and then tell me how to really pronounce your last name? Oh, we lose Danielle. Uh-oh. Danielle, are you still there to unmute? Danielle, you're still muted. Okay, so Danielle, I'll come back to you in a moment. Next up, we'll come back to you after Vanessa. Vanessa, unmute, please state your full name and your address.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, my name is Vanessa Adams and I live at 45 Bell Road in Chatham. Bear with me, I'm not a public speaker, so I wrote something out. So it's no secret that I am very pro parent choice when it comes to masks. These children have been in restaurants, stores, camps, gone to baseball games, the Barnstable County Fair, family vacations, Fenway Park, sports and play dates, and there have been 0 cases, 0 outbreaks, and 0 hospitalizations. It seems very hypocritical to me that parents want to demand mask mandates when they haven't seemed to have their children wearing them anywhere for the last 3+ months. I am pretty tired of also hearing that these children need to protect their families. Any adult who has wanted to be vaccinated at this point has been. So to me, that argument is mute. And I know a few people brought up the new Delta variant being more contagious to children the last meeting, but you can go directly to the CDC website and look at the data for yourselves. There are 0 patterns showing this virus strain is more serious or severe. You know, COVID is here forever. No matter how long you mask up for, you know, when you take it off, COVID will still be here. You can still catch it and spread it, whether you're vaccinated or not, wearing a mask or not. So when does it end? Also, teaching the children to be scared that they're going to get each other sick is a problem. You are instilling fear in them, and these mandates very much seem as though they're based on fear for yourselves rather than the protection of them. Additionally, these children are wearing cloth masks, not N95s. And quoted by Fauci himself, he stated, "The typical mask you buy at a drugstore is not really effective in keeping out the virus, which is small enough to pass through any material." So if that is true, then what exactly is the point? DESE, the CDC, and even Charlie Baker have all stopped short on mandating masks. Highly recommend does not equate to mandate. It equates to choice. My preschool child can go to school within the same town without wearing a mask, but my 7-year-old is forced to wear one. It just doesn't make any sense. And my second issue is in regards to vaccination. My children will not be receiving the shot, and you cannot segregate them and force them to wear masks indefinitely. The flu is scientifically more deadly than COVID in children, and we did not force masks on them ever before. You saw what happened last year when the state tried to mandate the flu shot. It backfired and they retracted because choices on medical procedures should be up to individual families, not schools. And I know for a fact that there are multiple parents who chose to be vaccinated themselves, but they will not be vaccinating their children, and that is their right. Obviously, right now we're all navigating through hell, but there needs to be a middle ground. I am definitely in keeping the hand washing and sanitizing protocols, but masks and vaccination decisions need to be left up to the parents. And for anybody listening who is nervous to speak, trust me, I completely understand. I'm like shaking, but you know, you just need to use your voice to stand up for your children. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanessa. Danielle, I see that your hand went down. So if you want to raise your hand, I'll put you back on the list to speak, unless you want to unmute now and speak now. I'm not sure, maybe you didn't mean to raise your hand or not.
Yep, I figured it out. I just couldn't get it unmuted before. Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
You're welcome. Danielle, state your full name for us and your address.
Danielle Intanti, and I'm
Ah.
945 State Highway in Eastham.
Thank you.
Again, also, I'm not a huge, I don't enjoy public speaking, so I'm going to read something that I wrote, but I'm here to voice my extreme opposition to the masking of our children. We have all had a great summer. Again, to reiterate what Vanessa said, enjoying all of those things unmasked. We have to continue to move forward and stop trying to control each other. These masks have such a negative effect on children, and that has been proven over and over again with testing. But for some reason, people are refusing to acknowledge that. Breathing in carbon dioxide and being stuck in a saliva and sweat-soaked mask is not doing anybody any good. These generic masks that everyone is wearing from the stores states right on the box that they will not eliminate the risk of disease or infection and are not to be used for medical use. And I hate to break it to everybody, but the homemade leopard print masks are not doing anything for your health. Wearing them also comes with the potential for anxiety and negative impacts on communication and language development. Your job as teachers is to not make health decisions for families. You should be focusing on teaching our children how to take care of their bodies with healthy food, exercise, respecting those around them, not creating segregation with vaccinations or masking. This divisiveness needs to stop. Everyone keeps talking about how great our community is and needing to protect it. We all love this community we live in, but it's not our job to protect everyone from viruses that are inevitable. Please don't sit there and keep using elderly friends and family as excuses because my children are not responsible for keeping everyone healthy. That's not their job. COVID isn't going anywhere, just like the flu didn't go anywhere, and it was far more deadly. We've never taken these precautions for anything before COVID. Taking care of our own bodies and staying healthy. If you are so fearful of this virus, then you should certainly not be putting your children back into school. Let our children breathe fresh air in school. Let them smile and laugh at each other. Let them learn without a restricting mask. Let them be free, healthy children. Our boys will not be returning to school if masks are required. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. And next up is Galaxy A12. If you could please unmute, state your name and your address.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, hi, thank you. Hi, my name is Melanie Holland, and I live at 235 Division Street in Dennisport. I'm a mother of 5 children, including 2 Monomoy students. One of my sons did full remote last year due to difficulty with masking. His older brother attended in person at the high school. It was very important for him to be with his peers. Some of the feedback I received about his school experience, and I quote, "School just sucks now. It's too quiet. Kids don't really talk or laugh anymore." End quote. I could clearly see the negative impact this was having on him throughout the year, to the point where he became depressed and stopped wanting to go or even get out of bed. This is unlike him. It hurt my heart to drop him off each day, knowing what he was facing without seeing faces. One morning, headed into the building, he realized he forgot his mask. He looked panicked and covered his nose and mouth with his hand until he got back to the car. It is sad what has been done to our kids. During one of his basketball games, I witnessed a player pull down his mask to catch his breath after a hardworking play. A coach yelled at him to pull his mask back up or he would call him off the court. Over and over, I've seen kids being forced to choose between breathing properly and being able to go to school or sports or play. And of course, most will choose to be with their friends, so they suffer and deal with it, because the alternative means isolation from their beloved community. I asked my sons this morning how they would feel about returning to school with masks. Some responses were, and I quote, "It's pointless. We've been all summer without them, It would be survivable, I guess. If we have to, I will, because I'm going into high school and need to be with my friends again. But it doesn't make sense for us to have to, it doesn't make sense for us to have to wear them anymore. End quote. From the research I have done from sourcing many medical professionals to my own personal experience and observations, masks, especially on children, are ineffective, unsanitary, unhygienic, and worse, they're physically and psychologically damaging. Natural immunity is strong amongst our youth, and this virus has proven to be mild and non-threatening to healthy individuals. At this point, it seems we are sacrificing our children's well-being to make some adults feel safer. This goes against natural law and children's rights. For the school staff and parents who want to continue to mask up or get a vaccine or take any other actions they feel necessary, I fully respect your choice and rights to do so. However, all individuals and families should be afforded that same freedom. Our choices have been taken away. We have been divided, each very passionate about their convictions and beliefs. I feel the only way to heal, unite, and recover as a community is through restoration of parent and or individual choice on how we keep ourselves and our families healthy. I urge and I pray you hear this plea. Thank you for your time and dedication to our children and families.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
Next up is Courtney Wittenstein. Yeah, unmute and state your name and address, please.
Hi, this is Courtney Wittenstein. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I live in Harwich. I spoke last week, and I'll, elaborate a little bit more about what I said. I have two kids. One is going into kindergarten, one is going into third grade. And last year we decided to homeschool because of my son. He has asthma, and he's had pneumonia 3 times. So we've had to be really careful about COVID and, not knowing what happens with it. The reason we decided this coming school year to send them back is because of that, because we've heard how great Monomoy handled the school year last year with masks and really kept COVID under wraps. There's proof in it. There's proof in numbers, and the fact that there are some adjustments to the school plan this year. The kids are going to have more freedoms. A mask is a mask. The word segregation has been brought up a lot, and that is so not the word for this. It's a safety issue. Everyone's wearing masks. No kids are segregated because of it. We can spout off facts, but we don't know where this thing is going. We need to look at states like Vermont and Florida. Vermont has such low numbers, and I visited Vermont a couple weeks ago, and I must say I was pretty impressed. Like, most of the restaurants were outdoor seating. All of the storefronts were still requiring masks. Vaccinations are not. And you know what? Their numbers are really low. You look at a state like Florida, where they are so overwhelmed in their ICUs, so overwhelmed in their ERs, and we have to take note of that. We don't know where this thing is going. I think there's just a lot of truth to that, and we have to look at situations like that. I mean, at this point, it's like I'm thinking of it like a seatbelt. Like, you don't tell your kids not to get in the car and not wear a seatbelt. It's the same type of thing. Everyone's wearing masks. No one wants to wear masks, but it's proven that it's helpful. And I think the kids are the real resilient ones, and it's not bothering the kids as much as we think. I think it's the parents. I think it's bothering all the adults. And I think that's where this is coming from. Someone last week said something about kids committing suicide because of masks. It's not because of masks, it's because of the pandemic. So we want to try and stop this pandemic from happening. And in order to do that, we have to follow certain safety guidelines. And masks are proving to keep numbers down. So let's we don't want this thing to perpetuate anymore. And if we do, it's just going to keep going and going and going. I just want to thank the teachers and Scott Carpenter for coming up with a really elaborate, thoughtful plan. And the teachers in general, you have to be a certain type of person to do the job that you do. And I realized quickly as a homeschool mom last year that I wasn't that person. So I appreciate all the work that has been put into this plan. And I hate the division that is happening with all of this. And this is not a political thing for me. This is just facts, and I'm following science. So thank you all for your time, and good luck.
Thank you, Courtney. I had Chrissy Blake on my list. I'm not sure if she's still here, but I'll wait and see if she raises her hand again. Oh, I'm sorry. There you are, Chrissy.
Hi. All right, I'd like to start by pointing out that the Massachusetts state of emergency ended on June 15th, 2021. And I understand some parents would prefer their children wear a face covering in school. I
Chrissy,
get it. Yes.
I'm sorry. Could you make sure that your full name is Chrissy Blake? And then could you
Chrissy
also please
Blake,
state your address?
Sherwood Road.
Thank
Sherwood,
you.
yeah. So I
Sherwood Road
understand
in
Harwich. Good to go? All right. I understand some parents would prefer their children wear a face covering in school, and I get that. And I support their right to have their child do so. However, when it comes to requiring all students to wear one, it's imperative that we take a step back and distinguish our moral conflicts from our legal obligations. I must warn people that requiring masks on all students is unconstitutional and will be met with substantial and exhausting lawfare that Monomoy School District cannot afford. If you require your students to wear a mask or restrict their movement or entry for not complying, the schools are at risk for violating several federal and state laws, thus incurring consequences that may result from such a poor decision. From a legal perspective, I assure you, this will be the case. Many of us are aware that on paper, like the Constitution, we still have inalienable rights. Under the Supremacy Clause found in Article 6, Section 2 of the US Constitution, both the Constitution and federal law supersede state laws. I admit in this climate of unabridged compliance, it has become all too easy to undervalue one's rights in honor of fear. However, even with the existence of COVID-19, as of August 16th, 2021, we are still afforded every one of our civil rights bestowed by the United States Constitution unto its citizens. The truth is, our children's civil rights supersede any guidelines or protocols set forth by the CDC, American Association of Pediatrics, Monomoy School District, or any entity for that matter. In fact, no law is valid or lawful that violates the Constitution. No health order, emergency order, state of emergency, municipal ordinance, store policy, nothing may suspend or violate the Constitution, period. If you look closely at the wording on Governor Baker's Reopening Massachusetts webpage, it specifically uses the word guidance and guidelines and not the words law. It may seem like a trivial detail, however, the meaning behind this is the key. A guidance is a statement or plan by which to determine a course of action. A guideline aims to streamline particular processes according to a set routine or sound practice. By definition, following a guideline is never mandatory. Guidelines may be issued by an organization to make the actions of its students, employees, divisions more predictable. However, they are not binding and not enforceable by law. If you haven't already, it would behoove you to familiarize yourselves with the hierarchy of the governance within our great United States of America. For those of you unfamiliar with the term bodily autonomy, it is defined as the right to govern one's body, and it protects an individual's security and integrity. In McFall versus Schimpf, set a legal case, it set precedents that an individual is not under compulsion to aid another person at their mental or physical expense, upholding the right to bodily autonomy. The judge in that case stated, for our law to compel defendant to submit to an intrusion of his body would change every concept and principle upon which our society is founded. To do so would defeat the sanctity and the individual and would impose a rule which would know no limits. And one could not imagine where the line would be drawn for society with respects to the rights of one individual to sink its teeth into the jugular vein or neck of one of its members and suck from its sustenance for another member is revolting to our hand-wrought concepts of jurisprudence. He saw what was coming with this. It's a slippery slope. This is about the Constitution. It's not about masking as much as it seems as though it is. It is about our constitutional rights and letting them slip away. And it is the choice of the parent, it's parental autonomy, to allow or disallow their child to wear something on their face. It is the parent's right. And so I think it's really important here that we focus on what needs to be focused on. And that is the fact that we don't want our school to face lawfare. Nobody wants our school to get torn apart by that. And let's really focus on this and just put it in the hands of the parents, like the Constitution suggests.
Thank you, Chrissy. Next up is Holly Tavano. Please unmute and state your name and address.
Hey Mayor, it's Holly Tavano and I live on Route 28 in Harwichport. I wrote something as well, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. Tonight I'm speaking as both the Harwich Elementary School nurse and mother of two in support of the plan proposed by Superintendent Carpenter as we return in person this September. Since we haven't yet shared a school year with the Delta variant, let us first proceed with caution. Let's allow it to play out and choose prudence with our patients. I wholeheartedly believe that those of us who support initial masking this year are not blind sheep, nor are those who resist this plan out to harm anyone deliberately. Every day since March of 2020 has been a learning experience. Let's try and continue to learn together. Most of us are scared on some level or another, and I know this because being scared calls up our defensiveness and this strong need to protect our people. And I see you all doing this because you love your children. And since one of my professional jobs is to protect your children while they are within the walls of our schools, that means advocating for and supporting the continued use of masks as we begin the school year. As parents, you get to choose if and when your child will wear a mask outside of school. But keep in mind that your normal life does not consist of hundreds of unvaccinated children hanging out inside of your home. Masks are a tool to minimize the risk of COVID and a good faith attempt to keep students and staff safe, not a symbol of oppression. No one is speaking about segregation or forced vaccination. But to all those opposing this plan, I ask you to reflect on your privilege. Please check your privilege as a person with the means to face medical challenges if presented to you. Children of racial or ethnic subgroups are disproportionately affected by COVID and other chronic diseases like asthma, diabetes, obesity, and mental health issues. And in the US, 25% of children have chronic health conditions, 7.5% have unmet healthcare needs, and 5% have multiple chronic conditions. School-age children with a documented health condition of Hispanic ethnicity or Black race have been more likely admitted to a hospital or an ICU than their white peers suffering from COVID during this pandemic. COVID has amplified health disparities that are present among vulnerable communities. Students, their families, and school staff within these communities may experience unequal access to testing, treatment, and preventative measures, and also be at an increased risk for illness due to economic pressures to continue working in unsafe environments. We need to show care and compassion to our neighbors. Health equity is defined as everyone having a fair and just opportunity to be as healthy as possible. It is a moral and human right principle focused on reducing and eliminating health disparities. And the presence of a chronic illness and potential long-term effects of COVID can interfere with education, relationships, health, and significantly affect future life outcomes.
Holly?
Yes, am I at 3 minutes?
A little over, sorry. I forgot to restart my time, so I was guessing.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Can I say one thing about Katie Cutter? Because we love her and we love her positiveness. I just wanted to revisit her comments last Wednesday about the forward movements. So thumbs up to that, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you, Holly. All right, I'm resetting so I remember to start my timer again. I had Justin Alex as next on my list, but I don't see him in the meeting. So if he comes back, he can re-raise his hand and I'll put him back on the list. Otherwise, next up is Jennifer Raffler. If you could unmute, state your name and your address, please.
Jennifer Raffler.
Thank you. Your address?
250 Gold Pond Road.
Thank you. Go ahead.
What you are proposing to do to these school children, masking them for up to 8 hours a day, is nothing short of child abuse. And there is no real science to back up your plan of imposing a blanket medical device prescription on all these students. As a science major who has worked for pharma in 3 microbiology labs and also in a nursing home, I can tell you from my training and from my experience and through common sense and critical thinking skills, masks do not work. Not only do they not work to prevent transmission of viruses, they are not safe. God blessed us all with 3 orifices on our face that allow us to breathe. 3, because breathing is just that important. Our children's brains are developing well into their 20s, and they need adequate oxygen for their brains and bodies to grow and maintain good health. There is statistically a 0% chance of a child dying from the infection called COVID-19, and there is zero data to suggest asymptomatic transmission is even a thing, and zero data proving masking is safe, especially long-term. Will you be responsible for the ill effects of masking our children? And further, do you know what bodily autonomy is? Bodily autonomy is the most fundamental human right, and it is God-given, which means you cannot take this right away. It is the right to have full governance over one's body with the guarantee that he or she is not coerced or influenced by outside forces. Bodily autonomy is a very important concept that should be taught to all children at a very early age, and yet you actively violate it. It is necessary for children to know that they have control over their bodies, and that if something does not feel right, it is not right. It is instinctive and intuitive to not want one's nose and mouth covered up. What are you teaching these children by forcing them to do something to their own bodies that they know is not right? Are you teaching them that their body is not theirs, that some outside authority has jurisdiction over their bodies, and that they should welcome that as okay and normal? No, this is not acceptable, and this is very dangerous. You allow them to be called by pronouns other than those given at birth, and even without parental consent or knowledge, but you will not allow them to decide if they would like to breathe freely? What about the parents? Why do the parents not have a say in their child's breathing practices? Let the parents decide if they want their children masked or not. The school needs to be concerned with teaching our children science, math, English, history, not with enforcing a mandate based on some fake science handed down from organizations that clearly do not have their act together and haven't had it together from day one regarding the so-called pandemic. I implore you to allow parental choice and to stay in your lane and not interfere with bodily autonomy of our most precious resource, our children. Your actions have very serious consequences, and you need to realize that mandating any medical device is very dangerous and you will be liable. If you continue—
Jennifer, that's over 3 minutes. I ask you to finish up with one more sentence, please.
Many of your students, you have gone too far. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next up is Jamie Adachi. Please unmute, state your name and address.
Hi there, I'm Jamie Adachi from Deer Meadow Road in Harwich. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi there. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is a really charged forum. I think it's an important forum. I'm pleased to be able to be included. I want to give a little perspective on public health as a public health provider. I'm PCP, primary care provider for many of the children and adults in this community. I'm also a mom of two. I'm not a great public speaker, so I need to catch my breath. But some of you have heard about the Swiss cheese model and how it applies to COVID precautions. And I want to give a little bit of background about what Swiss cheese has to do with public health. I have a huge fear of flying, and I had many years ago the great luck to have a friend who was an airplane pilot, and I got to go look at a plane with him. And he explained to me about Swiss cheese. And this was the first time I ever heard such a thing, although now I think we hear it maybe a lot in this situation with the pandemic. But on an airplane, and to sort of deal with my fear of flying, he told me that there's a million things that can go wrong on the plane, but if they don't happen at the same time, you're really okay because there's compensatory mechanisms in place. So, you know, if you run out of gas and if you get struck by lightning and if there's no, all the engines stop working and half of the plane falls off, you're going to be in trouble. But that's when all of the holes in the Swiss cheese align, and that's when you're in trouble. But those very rarely happen at the same time. So because we're in the midst of a pandemic, now coming back less on dairy and more on viral contagion, we have to think about how to minimize the chances that all the holes in this situation will line up at the same time. So taking as many precautions as we can do reasonably, safely, and with common sense will protect most of us, many of us. But when you look at it from the Swiss cheese model, if there's a lot of unvaccinated adults who are choosing not to be vaccinated, and we have, most of the pediatric population not vaccinated because thus far they are vaccine ineligible just because they're too young if they're under 12. And we have increased proximity. We're going back to school. And we have the very real COVID fatigue where we're just tired of taking precautions and tired of keeping distance and doing those things. That's when the holes can line up. And that's when the most vulnerable of us, and Holly outlined it really, really well, become ill and die. And the numbers are staggering of people these are real deaths, and they are increasing among children because they're the biggest unvaccinated population. There's, we have research and we're all, kind of at loggerheads about it. I would like to say as a medical person, the research that I follow has been validated by very strict standards and with a really exquisite understanding that research evolves over time. I think I was taught with my medical degree that almost half of what you learn will become invalidated over time, and you have to know where to get solid research and how to also interpret the research to know that it's valid. So we all have to be somewhat flexible as research evolves, but this is coming from epidemiologists.
That's 3 minutes.
Yep. Okay. So just to say, I support Dr. Carpenter's plan and I'm grateful for it. And thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Next up is Chris Thonis. Please unmute, state your name and your address, please.
Hi, yes, my name is Chris Thonis. I'm a resident at, I live at 6 Wilma Way in Harwich. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, great. I just had a pre-written statement. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here, and the civil discourse is good. Discussion is good in this topic, and I just wanted to bring a unique perspective from my own family. I'm a proud parent of 2 children who'd like to attend Monomoy schools this year. And I say like to attend because they were unenrolled from school at the beginning of last year due to the implementation of a mandatory mask mandate. The decision made by my wife and I to unenroll our children wasn't for safety concerns. COVID and its potential effect on children is minimal. Statistics about the minuscule rates of infection and serious adverse health impacts to children was well documented even at that time in September of 2020. Instead, our decision to unenroll was directly linked to the environment in which they'd be learning, in masks, minimal contact with friends and peers, etc. A full year removed from the start of school last year, we now have an on-demand availability of 3 vaccines, low hospitalizations, low death rates, yet we are still implementing the same draconian measures for controlling this virus. Masking our youth in an ineffectual effort to control this virus is not a prudent way forward. Anecdotally, a slogan on the Monomoy Regional Middle School billboard at the beginning of school last year read, "Accept, adapt, achieve." I happen to drive this route often, and I drove by that sign and it caught me. To my research, this quote was taken from John H. Clark III. In Mr. Clark's own words, this was his interpretation of the first part of his slogan, accept. And this is his words, quote, "Don't fight what is, accept reality. We cannot change anything that has already happened. The best we can do is actually love it. This caution to love the bad things in our life may seem morbid, especially when terrible things sometimes happen to seemingly good people. However, by loving what is, we fully embrace what has already happened and what was always meant to be and always will be," end quote. Driving by this sign weekly until it was changed, the accept part of the slogan never sat well with me. Our decision to homeschool last year was new, it was difficult, and it was scary. It was an extraordinary burden transitioning to homeschooling, but we adapted and achieved, but we are not willing to accept. Our family has grown stronger together through this pandemic, and we have adopted a similar motto, but we have a very key difference: adapt, improvise, and overcome. This may sound familiar to some and should ring true for all, but this is the motto of our United States Marine Corps. I ask that the rights of the individual and the sovereignty of parents over the decisions for their children and the health and safety of their children be the primary consideration in the committee's decision on masking. I implore you to to let the parents decide how best to care for their children. Thank you for this time.
Thank you, Chris. Next up is Lauren. Please unmute and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Lauren Tonis at 6 Wilma Way in Harwich, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
I'm super nervous, so I wrote something down as well. So bear with me if I sound shaky. I am a proud parent of a 7th and 1st grader. Last year, my husband and I made the decision to homeschool our children, not out of fear of COVID, but because we didn't want to subject them to the physical and psychological trauma of masking and social distancing. While I don't envy the position you're all put in, I think you need to hear from parent choice voices. In your reopening plan, you are quoted as saying that COVID-19 is here to stay and will likely become an endemic virus attributable to the common cold. And then go on to say you will not remove a mask mandate until 70% of the student population is vaccinated. I feel this is a reckless statement and action, given that you are using the masks as punishment until enough students are vaccinated with an inoculation that is proven to be incredibly dangerous against a virus that has proven to not be dangerous in children. To quote you further, you have stated that children can spread the virus to others both at school and at home. That is your excuse for masking the kids. I feel this is cowardly and appalling that we use our children as shields. You are choosing to ignore the health and psychological ramifications of children wearing masks. My children will not be enrolled in the school with a mask or vaccine mandate. I stand for bodily autonomy and parent choice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lauren. Next, we have Kimberly Ann. Please unmute, state your full name and your address.
Hi, it's Kimberly Robbins, and I'm at 32 Forest Beach Road in South Chatham. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I have a quick question. Is everybody who's calling in a stakeholder, or is this public, open to anybody who would love to call in around?
It's public to anyone because we do accept school choice students. So
Right. Yeah, I was just curious. So I have two children, one who just graduated in 2021 and one who's going to be a freshman. I spoke last time, and basically we can hear a lot of people speak about the research and their interpretation and what they think a mask does scientifically or not. I mean, science does back in the CDC, the WHO, the Lancet, and all these scientific journals that are peer reviewed, all of our American Academy of Pediatrics, all are for this type of plan. And so my question for people is to really examine why you would send your kid to Monomoy. I know why I send my kids to Monomoy, and that's because of how one of the biggest reasons why I'd stay here is because of the way that they handled the pandemic. I mean, they kept our kids safe and they relied on data. And I trust that they have our kids' best interest in mind. And, to think that some people are talking litigiously about, sort of threatening about a lawsuit and talking about, putting our child in harm's way by having a mask. It's just not who Monomoy is. It's not who the administration is. It's not who the faculty is. It's not who the students are. It's not who the teachers are. So our experience has been phenomenal with Monomoy. It has been, not flawless, but you've kept our kids safe and you backed your decisions with pure science and updated science. I hear a lot of people saying that it's not hurting children. I think people need to be a little bit more, if you're doing research the variants and how they're manifesting in children. And this is something we want to prevent. We don't want this to mutate. So masks are to slow the spread. It's not a cure-all. It's just to help. It's to help the kids. When I told my son that he was going to most likely have to mask up, and he was bummed, but he understands. And that's the other thing. I heard somebody say that our kids aren't responsible for your family, but I have to argue that my kid is responsible for your family. That's what we teach our kids, empathy. We teach them at a small age, hopefully, that you take care of your community, and everybody has a responsibility, whether you're 5 or 50. So anyway, I trust Monomoy. You guys have done a phenomenal job. Thank you so much. Please, keep doing the research that you do and keep on pivoting when we need to pivot, because that's what we have to do. It's a pandemic. None of us has seen this in our lifetime. We need to really just band together on this. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Kim. Next up is Heather Brown. Please unmute, state your full name and address. Heather Brown, are you unmuting? Okay, we're gonna skip over Heather. We'll come back to you after Allie. Allie, can you please unmute, state your full name and address?
Yes, my name is Allie Kelly. I live in Dennisport, Massachusetts. I have 3 kids in 3 different schools with you. I spoke at the last meeting and I will speak again at this meeting against masking our children. Teachers have taught through the flu, SARS, H1N1, swine flu, pneumonia, Ebola in some states. Most of these with higher fatality numbers in children in 1 year versus the 2 years we've been through this, as shown in the CDC data. I'm a little upset that these people keep saying the data doesn't show that masks are bad and the data shows that masks protect, because that's not the data that's out there. So I'm a little confused why, when we see data from 2 different sources, it's read 2 different ways. I have a problem with people saying, oh, we're not going to be segregating your children, vaccinated or not vaccinated, but that's what I've heard from you. People that have the children that have been vaccinated won't have to wear masks, but you are then segregating the people who choose not to get the vaccination for their children. That's straight up segregation. You're separating the population of our school. It's a huge problem. It is not your decision how I protect my children. And I know people are like, well, you know, it's your community and you should be protecting them. But my first and only responsibility as a parent is to these children. Never have we placed children's safety before adults. This is new. I'm upset. And if you've seen the way that children wear masks and you're thinking that this is going to protect them and those around them, you're not looking close enough. The children that I've seen wearing masks pull them down to sneeze. They wipe their nose in them. They fall on the floor. They put them back on. They fall on the floor again. They have them in their mouth and they chew on them. No matter how many masks you give these children, this is how children, young children, handle masks. And I know you've all seen this. Teachers have taught through all those sicknesses and done it bravely. And I don't understand why all of a sudden this becomes our children's responsibility to save these people that are that nervous. If you are that nervous about going into our school system, maybe your choice should be to stay home or find something that allows you to work remotely. Wear your own mask. It shouldn't be put on our children to do this. It is unfair. It's not right. And 50 years of my body, my choice is being changed. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Allie. Heather, I saw you did try to unmute. Nope, there you go. Say your name and address, please.
Sorry, I was stepping
okay.
away. My name is Heather Brown. I'm from South Yarmouth, Massachusetts, and we have chosen Monomoy because of the incredible educators that we have been available to our children. That said, I am vehemently against the mandate of masks for our children and feeling strongly that it should be a parent's choice. I would expect the school committee, superintendent, school principals, and staff should take personal responsibility for administering the medical devices to students in the absence of a state of emergency and nullification of EUA for masks. The faculty have not been properly trained in the use of respiratory protection, in donning and undonning of the device, or proper bacteria control. If protection factors have been established, which I could not see any evidence of in Dr. Carpenter's presentation, respirators, what particulates are being inhaled versus exhaled? These are things that parents need to consider when sending their child to a school to expect that the staff and faculty can administer a medical device on their behalf, absent of their parents' choice. I don't see where the school has explored engineering controls to eliminate the use of masks, i.e. UV for improved ventilation in order to alter the environment. That is all I have for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Next, we have Mandy Blair. Can you please unmute, state your name and address?
Hi there, Mandy Blair, Old Queen Anne Road in Chatham, Massachusetts. And I talk a lot at work, which Heather Brown actually knows, but I've never talked at a school committee meeting. So I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. I did write something short just so I wouldn't lose my train of thought. So thank you to the teachers and administrators for all of the work that they've put into keeping our schools running this past year. This pandemic is really not in their job description. We have 2 small children, one at Chatham Elementary School. The past year was, considering everything, so well executed. Our daughter, who has asthma, wore a mask every single day, 5 days a week for an entire school year. I would guess it is way more than any of us grown-ups ever did. She also has glasses. The mask did not bother her. According to her teacher, it was a non-issue for the whole class. The class learned, the class had fun, their friendships bloomed. My child did not experience trauma from wearing a mask. My child was able to thrive in a very safe setting. The teacher and the school did a fantastic job, and we cannot express our gratitude enough. I fully support the plan as proposed, and I'm so grateful for the thought that the Monomoy school system has given to this very challenging situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ben. Can you please unmute, state your full name and address?
Hi there. My name's Ben. I'm in Chatham at 640 Orleans Road. I'm a parent.
Ben, what's your last name?
Ben Emery.
Thank you.
I'm a parent here and just signed on to the call. I wasn't planning on speaking at all, but it seemed, I'm hearing some, people feel strongly about to speak for masking or for free without masking. And we're all used to, I think, some kind of opinion or position. But it seems worth mentioning that I also, there wasn't anyone I listened to that I really heard behind that people are driven by the care for their child, or even the teachers that care for, hey, what is the best way to give the very best to our kids and also the community. And that just shows up for me. I think it's worth stating. Everyone's in this for the right reason, and we get the strategies sometimes all tangled up, but I just wanted to put that into the pot. Thanks for holding the forum.
Thank you, Ben. Next up is Dan Baker.
Excuse me, Nancy.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. My name is Jolene Moresti, and I just don't have a hand to raise. I don't know where it is. I have a clapping. I have a thumbs up. Can I get on your list?
You can. Thank you for interrupting. And anybody else who's having trouble, go ahead and choose the right time to interrupt to get a hand to raise. But Corinne, I'm sorry, Jolene, I'll call you after Dan. So Dan Baker, unmute, state your full name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Dan Baker. I'm at 54 North Westgate Road in Harwich. And thank you for taking my call here. My overriding reason for speaking today is in support of parental rights, to encourage parents to get more involved and also to provide some additional information that could be helpful in the decision making. We all want to trust the science. It's easy, anybody can do it. But of course, science can be influenced by all sorts of things like politics, money, career pressure, on and on and on, and it can be incorrect. Therefore, it is, of course, still incumbent on everyone to take an extra step to verify for themselves that information, basically to trust but verify, because the children are depending on all of us to make the right decision for their protection. So, for example, I don't know if anybody's heard about this, but there was a recent study released by Johns Hopkins Medical School, an expert professor, Dr. Marty McCary. In his report, challenged the CDC's death number of 355 children under the age of 18 related to COVID. And based on Dr. McCary's research of 48,000 cases of children under the age of 18 from April to August 2020, his study found that 0 healthy children in his control group died from COVID. He is also challenging the CDC's death numbers related to children because they do not specify whether the children was healthy or if it was in a risk group. But this clearly needs to be done by the CDC. So he's basically pushing the organization to do the right thing. And he also has an article in the Wall Street Journal if anybody's interested. But it appears that, you know, healthy children may not be in a risk group for COVID. And so the CDC's information is being challenged by a prominent medical organization, but how many people actually know about that? This is a great read and every parent should check it out. Also, I found some alternate information related to masks that may be interesting to people, and you may want to check it out for yourself. It was on the National Institute of Health website. They have a randomized study, a controlled study done by the Danish of around 6,000 people, and it concluded that the recommendation to wear surgical masks to supplement other public health measures did not reduce COVID infection rates among the wearers, basically concluded. And there was another study on the National Institute of Health website. It's a large randomized clinical trial performed in Vietnam. And it basically concluded that moisture retention, reuse of cloth masks, and poor filtration may result in increased risk of infection. Further research is needed to inform the widespread use of cloth masks globally. I thought that was interesting.
Okay, Dan, that's your 3 minutes. If you can finish up with a sentence, please.
Okay, okay, so the other thing is that the CDC website itself, believe it or not, has FDA information on it that states, and I quote, that a surgical mask does not provide the wearer with a reliable level of protection from inhaling smaller particles and is not considered respiratory protection. So it kind of makes me wonder whether the masks are becoming a psychological crutch rather than effective PPE. And I just again implore the parents to keep verifying the information and staying with the topic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Jolene, you can go ahead and unmute and state your full name and address, please.
I am Jolene Moresti, and we live on Orleans Road in Harwich. And I wanted to voice my opinion that I think it should absolutely be a parent's choice as to whether or not they are going to send their students in masked or unmasked. I can imagine that through this pandemic, there have been lots of times I have felt safer than others. And I want to be able to decide, maybe they don't need a mask this week. Maybe there's something happening in our community, and just for the sake of feeling more comfortable, I would like them to wear a mask, but I would like that choice. On a lighter note, my boys both attend Harwich Elementary School. I would also like the choice as to whether or not they choose breakfast in the morning. And I understand that that's again going to be offered, and I'm grateful that it is, but it became a bit of a sugar habit in our household to be able to grab donut sticks and cinnamon buns and Lucky Charms on the way to class every morning after having had breakfast. And I would like to choose to not have to have that so readily available to children who are absolutely going to grab it as they walk by. I know we're masking and that's the heavier discussion of tonight, but I also would like that as a choice. And I don't know if there's something that could be done to not just have it so readily available. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolene. Next we have Ben. You still have your hand raised, so if you don't mind pulling your hand down, because my eyes keep going to your name because it was listed first. Thank you. Next up is Megan Simmons. Please state your full name and address before your comments.
Yep, my name's Meg Simons. I live at 63 West Tupelo in Harwich. That's okay. I would just like to say my son is going into second grade at Harwich Elementary. I've been a nurse for 9 years. I'm not going to state like data and all that because I think people have kind of covered all of that tonight. I am definitely for parents having the right to choose. And I think that all stems from everyone's comments tonight. Everybody has a different opinion, a different view. I think everybody's families have different needs and different things that they're considering. And I just think that we need to get back to that point that it's the parent's right to choose what's best for their child and their family. Trust me, I love this community. I have been born and raised in Harwich all my life. There's nothing more than I want than a healthy community, but I think we need to get back to basic human rights and having the say in what we put on our child's face to go to school every day. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Megan. Next up is Katie Clooney, sorry. State your name
Okay,
and address,
Clooney.
please.
I wish it was Clooney. That would be
Sorry.
nice with the George in there.
I'm
But
so bad with names. I'm so sorry.
it's all good, all good. Katie Clooney, I live at 24 Sadie's Way in East Harwich, and I'm a parent at the school, and I'm also a first grade teacher at Harwich Elementary School. I have not prepared anything. I've sat here and I've listened, and I've taken in both sides of it. I'm just basically speaking from observing what I've seen in the past year in the classroom. And I will tell you, these kids, I think, are better than grown-ups some days because there's home rules and there's school rules. And the kids stepped up to the plate. They wore the mask. No, not always the best way, but they wore it. They, I mean, we came up with new ways to do things, which I never thought we would be as successful as we were. Was it perfect? No. Did we have to tweak it as the year went on? Yes. For the parent who said we just do math, reading, writing, stay in that frame of mind. That's a really hard thing to take when you talk about a human being, because we think about their heart and their head and what they're going through. And that's why you become a teacher. Is it a parent's right? It is a parent's right, but you also have to think about the bigger community when you're in one room with these kids and what you need to do for them. The last parent who just talked about breakfast, I second that. These kids have been, I'm going to eat at home, I'm going to eat here. And you're right, there's like a sugar buzz going on by the end. So we'll see how that goes. Contacting the teacher beforehand is a good way to maybe get them off that, like, we've eaten this morning, don't let them get it. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, but I will just say, with the tweaks that we've done, it was a successful year, and we just want that for this year too. And maybe we start with them and move away from them, but that's my 2 cents. So thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Next up is iPhone. If you could unmute, state your full name, please, and address.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Leah Mercurio. I live at 207 Church Street in Harwich.
Thank you.
I just want to reiterate a lot of things that people have said. Monomoy has been fabulous. Wonderful staff, wonderful teachers. What is starting to become a very big issue is the overreach. I understand that the school board and Scott Carpenter possibly feel that they are doing the absolute best for the students and the staff. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And as you can see here tonight, with how many people from the community stepped up to speak, that shows that we care deeply. I currently know that there is 130, if not more, it continues to grow daily, parents who have willingly signed an affidavit that will be sent, depending on the school board's choice tonight, or whenever you guys make that final decision, that will be sent to the DESE and continued rank all the way down through the superintendent and school board. This will be absolutely something that we parents don't want to do. This is not the route we would like this to go. We wanted to see this be parent choice, so that if you want to put your child in a mask, you can, and if you don't, then you don't have to. We have a daughter ourselves with underlying respiratory issues. COVID was a very scary time for us, as is Delta. And we still are fighting for parental choice to be able to choose when she wears that mask and when she doesn't. And I would be happy to speak with the school board or Scott Carpenter privately when we have a bit more time on the details of the affidavit and what that will entail on the school board's and Scott Carpenter's priorities and what they'll have to do to meet those affidavit signatories. And that's really it. I really hope that the school board makes the best choice for the whole community, as well as what Monomoy district would be facing in the future from the large group of parents that are choosing to fight for their children and advocate for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. I saw Jessica Rogers had her hand up before. I'm not sure if she is still with us and would like to speak.
I don't see her logged in. Unless
Okay.
she changed her name.
Thank you. I was just scrolling through the list. So if Jessica wants to come back on, she can come back on and raise her hand again, and we'll come back to her. I see Erin Mims. If you could please unmute, state your name and your address, please.
Hello, hi. I am Erin Mims. I live in Harwich. I have also been born and raised and lived here my whole life. I think that we have been blessed with an amazing school community. And I think that all of us are just trying to navigate this current world that we live in the best that we can. I am very much a firm believer in parent choice when it comes to masks. I think they can be encouraged for the families who will feel more comfortable sending their kids to school if they would like to wear one. I don't think that the families who will choose to not use them should be ostracized or shamed into doing it. I don't think that it comes down to the children's resilience and ability to keep one on. I think it just comes down to the fact that the parents should be deciding what happens to their own children and not a school committee deciding what happens to the children instead. So much has been covered tonight, so I don't have much to add that has not been said, but I
Erin, you just broke up after you said I don't have much more to say.
also stand and voice my opinion and say I'm parent and family choice. Already been said tonight, but just that I wanted to be able to add my voice as in support for family choice.
Thank you, Erin. Next up is Mariah McManus. You unmute, state your full name and your address, please.
Hello, I'm Mariah McManus. I live on Dusty Miller Lane in Chatham. I have two daughters that go to Chatham Elementary. One is entering kindergarten, and I really, like the past few people, don't have a lot to add. I think a lot has been said, but I am for parents' choice. And I don't think it comes down to the children's resilience. I think that we just kind of told them, you have to do it because that's what they said. And I don't think that should be how it is this year. I think we should all just have the choice to do what we feel is best for our children. And that's it.
Thank you, Mariah.
Thank you.
At this time, I don't see anyone else with their hand raised, so I'll give everybody a minute to kind of reflect back to see if they would like to raise their hands and speak. And I see Megan Story. Go ahead and unmute, state your name and your address, please.
Am I unmuted already?
You're good, yep.
Okay. I don't know that I ever muted. My apologies. Megan Story. I live on Meeting House Road in Chatham. I did join a little bit late, but I caught a bunch of the last people, so I get the general idea. And I just wanted to add a voice for someone who firmly believes that that masks are there to protect the students who are not able to protect themselves from this virus. And I consider myself incredibly lucky to have a 12-year-old who has been vaccinated. But that is not the case for the children who are younger. And I think this virus is out there. The schools that have opened in other parts of the country without mask mandates have seen a marked increase in COVID cases. And I just wanted to show my support for the school board and the potential mask policy that they're looking at as far as everyone wearing them.
Thank you, Megan. So if you can find your, good, you muted. Next up is John Morrell. Please unmute, state your name, full name, and address.
Good evening, everybody hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say first and foremost, like Monomoy, awesome school. You guys do a great
John,
thing.
John,
Yes.
could you state your full name and address, please, before you begin your comments?
John Morrell, South Yarmouth.
Thank you.
Just want to start off with like Monomoy, great school district, great education. Like you guys do a phenomenal job. Unfortunately, like the mask, like it doesn't do anything for the children. And unfortunately, people don't think of the children. Like we need to ask them what they feel about this. And I've heard a lot of these testaments. It's a lot of facts, a lot of this, a lot of that. How do the kids feel? And we're not asking them that. And that's what it's about. And I've been trained a lot in respiratory training, and these masks like they're asking them to wear is not what they need to wear. And if that's the case, all the teachers should wear it. Everybody should wear it. Everybody should be aware of what they're wearing, and they're not. I just want to say we need to think about the kids, and that's the important thing, and that's what we need to focus on. Like these kids need to be comfortable. They need to learn. That's what we need to focus on. Their learning, rather than the masks. They need to be safe. I agree with that 100%. But we need to focus on their education. That's what they're there for. And while they're safe there, that's what we need to focus on. So that's what I'm saying. Like we need to focus more on what the kids want and what they're there for to learn and their education. That's all I got.
Thank you, John. I had Cheryl Lewis was next. You unmute and state your full name and address, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Cheryl Lewis and I live at Oak Hill Road in Chatham. I'm the grandmother of 2 Monomoy students, and I do understand how unfortunate and difficult this situation is for all concerned. And as a grandmother, I feel the need to opine. My grandchildren have to wear masks that do more harm than good to stop a virus that is shown to be less deadly than the common flu, until they are forced to take an experimental vaccination that they don't need, which will then fail to prevent transmission to teachers and parents, many of whom have already been vaccinated with the said vaccine, which has also been shown not to work. Is that where we are here? I believe that the masks and the vaccinations must be an informed but free choice for each individual family to make. Last time I checked, this is America, and we have constitutional rights, as were very nicely stated earlier by Chrissy Blake. I would like you to seriously reconsider these ridiculous mask mandates, and that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for all you do.
Thank you, Cheryl. Is that who is on the iPhone? You can unmute.
Hi, I think that's me.
Yes,
Hi.
that's you.
Okay,
State your full name and address, please.
Yes, my name's Colleen Medeiros and I live on Pine Needle Way in Orleans. And I just want to say, I believe the schools are doing what they feel is going to, on paper, be shown that they've done all that they can to keep their students safe. I think that being said, I am vehemently for parental choice. I believe in supporting the immune system through physical activity, healthy diet, spiritual and mental health, and healthy relationships. My children wore masks all last year, but it was against my choice and with my hope that it would eventually end. And it now appears that if we don't stand up and put a stop to this, it may never end. So that being said, I just want to voice my opposition. I believe it should be a parent's choice. If a parent feels that they feel safer with their child wearing a mask, by all means, they should be able to do that. But there really isn't the science to back up that we should be forced to put masks on our children without our consent. So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else's hands raised. I did see hands raised before and they went down, so I'm not sure if that was intentional. I had Megan Smith and Heather Stamp were both there. So Megan, you can go ahead and unmute, state your name and address, please.
Hi there. Thank you so much. You can hear me, correct?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Smith, Cindy's Lane in Harwich. I am a parent of a middle schooler. I am also a staff member here at Harwich Elementary. And first of all, I want to clarify that the intention of masks is not to protect the wearer. That's really important for people to understand. And I think that that's getting lost because I understand that you, sorry, I didn't prepare my comments in advance like I did last week, but you don't want your child to have to wear a mask because you feel that your child is safe. However, it's the child next to them. I spent 4 hours today in a classroom measuring 3-foot distances so that my children in my kindergarten classroom will be safe from each other's, from any viruses that could be transmitted. I'm walking around with a yardstick, making sure that seats are more than 3 feet apart. And that's to keep your children safe. You're not wearing a mask to keep your own child safe. You're keeping a mask to keep the child next to you safe. We have children who are medically fragile in our school district. We need to keep them safe. And by wearing a mask, you are keeping your virus and your germs to yourself. Think of it like a tissue. You hold up a tissue to your own nose to keep your virus to yourself, to keep the cold to yourself. Walking around without a mask is putting children at risk of this COVID virus. And the other thing that I want to say is that we are not, this has only been around for what, 1.5 years, almost 2 years now in existence. And we don't know the long-term effects. There have been anecdotal evidence of the long-term effects of the COVID virus on our children. We can't take that risk. If it is proven that there are no long-term effects, that's fine. You know, go ahead, do your thing. But until we know that, it's really not fair. And finally, I just would like to say to all the people who say masks don't do anything, and again, this is anecdotal, but having seen, I know Holly Tavano is on this call, and it would be interesting. I know she probably can't chime in because I think she used her 3 minutes, but the school nurses, I would be really curious to see. I know that masks do their job because we had a much lower, in general, illness spread last year. It was anecdotal, and the teachers all talked about how there were fewer colds, fewer incidences of absences due to illness. And it's just, I'm sorry, like I said, I didn't prepare my notes like I did last week when I spoke at the school committee meeting, but masks are not for you, they're for the person next to you. The person next to you might be immunocompromised, they might be at risk, and it's not about you, it's about the person next to you. So I'm sorry, Madam Chairperson, but I just feel really strongly about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Megan Dutcher, you're next. Can you unmute, please state your full name and address? Megan, are you there?
Hi, everyone. This is Megan Dutcher. I live in Dennisport on Depot Street. I actually have bronchitis right now, so just bear with me. I'm going to try to get through this without coughing up something. This year, I will have 3 children attending Harwich Elementary School in various grades. I believe it ultimately should be parents' choice for their child to wear or not wear a mask, considering it intimately affects the health and well-being of our young children. I'm not a scientist. We can all see everyone here has a Google button. Some opinions of the individuals have been repeated, basically copy and paste directly off CDC website about science and data. The data and science that no one is talking about are the effects of children wearing a mask for up to 8 hours a day, because there is no data and has not been studied yet. Fauci himself said, we don't know whether it's harmful. We hope that it's not, and that's not something that I choose to risk. If you believe in masking during the school day, you're free to do so. But if you're someone who is concerned about it and thinks it may not be the right choice for your children, then you should also have the right to make the ultimate decision. What I remember most about when the pandemic started was the overwhelming sense of fear. Everything we chose to do was a calculated risk. Choosing to see family members was a risk. Visiting a grocery store was a risk. Continuing to work throughout the pandemic was a risk. My children equated wearing a mask and staying home to being safe, saving lives, doing our part. So you can imagine how upset I was when, despite taking as little risks as possible, we as a family still ended up with COVID. After we recovered from COVID, and let me clarify this, even my 8-year-old with asthma and extreme sensitivity to dust and dander recovered within a 24-hour period. I realized, despite having no scientific data, I wondered why our kids, whose immune systems are among the strongest, wear masks. But let's all be honest here. I believe that the obsession with masking our children is really an outgrowth of adult anxiousness. So I'm going to touch on some data that we haven't spoke to tonight, which is, did you know that if you had COVID, you are 6.7 times more effective than the vaccinated population, even with the new Delta variant? So I asked myself why, as communities, we're so eager to look at other vaccine cards and we're not discussing those benefits from natural immunities. Everybody knows somebody that's had COVID, at least one other family. The problem that I'm having is that our kids are resilient because they're not. They just have no choice in the matter. We don't know how this is going to affect them long term. We have no clue. It's not a child's job to keep adults safe. It's not their job to protect teachers from getting sick. That's not their responsibility to bear. Also, they're not walking killers just waiting to infect someone with a virus they don't even know that they have. They're healthy, living, breathing, beautiful children, and they don't deserve any of the crap that this world has put them through in the last 18 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Next, we have Heather Stamp. Can you please unmute, state your full name and your address, please?
Hi, my name is Heather Stamp. I live on Pilgrim Lake Terrace in Orleans, and I am the second school nurse at Harwich Elementary School with Holly Tavano. And I just wanted to speak to Erin's point a few minutes ago that masks were very effective last year in keeping kids healthy from other respiratory viruses as well as COVID. We didn't see as many kids in the nurse's office through the winter, in fact, not many at all, which was wonderful. And I also just wanted to thank the school board and the school committee for the tremendous amount of research that they do going into making these decisions. I know from our school nurse at Orleans Elementary School, where my daughter goes, and the school nurse at charter school, where my 2 other children go, I know the amount of time that goes into making these decisions, the amount of research, credible research from credible sources that are respected, that goes into making these decisions. And it's never an easy decision to make, and not one that they come to lightly. They do have our children's best interest at heart every step of the way. It's about keeping our kids safe and healthy and getting them the best education they can while protecting them. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. I don't see any hands raised at this time. So if anybody is looking to speak, now would be the time to raise your hand. Monomoy parent, could you please unmute, state your full name and address, please?
Hi, my name is Melissa Klein, and I live on Route 28 in Harwood.
I'm sorry, Melissa, I didn't catch your last name.
It's C-L-I-N-E, Klein.
Thank you.
And I just want to kind of start, but I wasn't going to speak either, but just listening. And, I have 2 children, one in the Monomoy school system. And I guess, I've just been listening, and I'm a little, heartbroken to hear some, a lot of these parents and, people who are on here who aren't parents and like don't have kids in the school system, but, talk about these kids in a way that, your own children, of course, you're responsible for them. You want them to be healthy. You care about them. But to hear, I guess the lack of empathy, it's disturbing. It's, I'm thrown off, somebody mentioned, asking the kids like how they feel about it and, what they think. And, I can only speak for my kids. And, my daughter says that she loves her friends. She's caring, she's empathetic, and she's kind, and she cares about her classmates and her friends. And, I would hope that, these kids all feel the same way. And, I'm just a little, somebody was also talking about, how these kids have all been given perfect systems and lungs and, respiratory systems, but like, that's not the case for everybody. Some kids, have disabilities. Some kids have, my daughter was blessed by God with a heart defect. A fever could be catastrophic for her. These are the types of things that people don't seem to be thinking about, and, with their peers. And, you would think that you would want to do what could help somebody out of kindness. She's worn a mask this whole time, and, she's fine. She is, there is science to prove, like, I don't have things in front of me because I'm not a Google doctor, infectious disease specialist, or like mathematician, I don't know, but, we pay attention to these things. I'm definitely concerned for my daughter's health. My son will be going into preschool. Of course I'm concerned about that, but, it's not really we're not threatened by, I guess, anything. It's just kind of the right thing to do. And, she feels the same way. And I would hope that, other kids would want to, help their classmates and, be kind and empathetic. And I guess that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, so we're at a point again, no hands raised. Have anybody a last call to raise their hands?
Nancy, may I speak?
Eric Elliott, yes, go ahead. Please state your full name and your address before your comments.
My name's Eric Elliott. I live on Orleans Road in East Harwich. I have 2 children in the school system as well, one in the elementary school and one in the middle school. And just a couple of questions that I actually had. One question was, I haven't actually seen the data for the reopening plan, the actual number data that they're basing all the numbers off of. And I was wondering where we could see that. That was one question. And my other one was a statement that we're talking about, children getting sick, and people have said that there's been a lot less illness with everybody, with all the children wearing the masks, and they're not touching each other or blowing their noses on each other. And our school nurses have seen a lot less visitors to the office. There's been a lot less absenteeism. How is this affecting our children's immunity systems? When all our children first get into preschool, they bring every virus home to us. And as parents, we all know we get sick with every cold and every stomach bug and everything that's going around. And it builds our immunity systems. And now we're masking these children. And yes, right now they are not sick and they're not getting the common cold. They're not getting the flu. And what's going to happen when we do eventually take these masks off of these children? Their immunity systems are going to be back to zero. I can guarantee that if you check in with doctors' offices or our local hospitals, ever since Massachusetts had started unmasking, there has been more illness going around, not necessarily just COVID, but all illness going around. And that's because people have weakened their immune systems to the point where they're going to catch everything that's going around. My daughter is immune challenged and she does have a respiratory disease. And in the beginning of COVID, when we didn't know anything about it, I was scared to death for her. And now I'm scared to death for her to have to go to school and wear a mask because of the anxiety it breeds on her. So I think I would just like to see us really think about this and revisit and, lay some of the onus on us as parents of what we think is best for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I see Pete Engard. Please unmute, state your full name and your address.
Hi, my name's Pete Engard, Orleans Road in Harwich. I have 4 grandchildren in the Monomoy school system. And I just wish people would follow the science instead of their feelings. The science says that masks do not work. They're as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than not wearing a mask. I have COPD. I also have silicosis in my lungs, and I have not worn a mask for the past 2 years. I go to Stop and Shop. I go to CVS. I'm living my life, and I have not. My pulmonologist says that I'm lucky, but he's not afraid for me, and I'm not afraid for me. So these masks don't work. As a matter of fact, they're a hindrance. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Pete. Next, we have Stephen Skelly. Please unmute, state your full name and address.
All of a sudden, everybody's hand. I'm Stephen Skelly. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
I live on 137 in Harwich. MIT published a report in April 23rd of this year stating that 6 feet or 60 feet when indoors, wearing masks or otherwise, it doesn't matter once you're sharing the air. You can get COVID or you cannot, depending on who you are, how healthy you are, or otherwise. Have you guys looked at that? Have you guys looked at any other studies stating anything similar? That's my question, and I'm going to relinquish the floor.
Thank you, Stephen. So I'm not sure if you were here at the beginning, but we actually can't answer questions this evening. This is purely just to hear public comment. We don't have any discussion items on our school committee agenda, just so you know. So we're not ignoring your questions, we just cannot answer them. Next on hands raised is Carrie. Please unmute, state your full name and address.
Hi there. My name is Carrie Sims. I live in Harwich on Clearwater Road. I have 2 daughters going to be in the high school this year. We are a Monomoy family, and I fully support Dr. Carpenter and his reopening plan. The masks do work. I do follow the science. My children have no problem wearing it. I think the majority of the people who say their kids have a problem wearing it are the ones causing the problem. My daughters have never once complained about wearing masks to go anywhere, to do anything. They do it because they know what's right for them. They care about the people around them. They care about what happens to the society, the community. I just, again, want to say I strongly support Monomoy's decision if it be made to wear masks in the classroom because they do work. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. There was a Jen who had her hand raised, so if she still wants to speak, I'll have her re-raise her hand, but in the meantime, we'll go on to iPhone. Could you please unmute and state your full name?
Hi, I think it's me that you're calling on.
Yes, that's you.
Yeah, my name is Jacqueline Skelly. I live on 137 in Harwich.
And I just want to know, I mean, I've been listening to that all night and I see both sides. I just wanted to make sure that I'm noted that I am 100% parents' choice. I don't believe in the masks for the kids. I'm 100% vaccinated, but I will not get my kid vaccinated until it's way FDA approved to even think about it. And to separate him if he isn't vaccinated, I just think it's just wrong. And basically, I just want to like put down that I am 100% parents' choice. I don't see why they can take the mask down when they're having lunch and COVID doesn't go away. For 30 minutes, they're sitting there talking, eating, mouths open, and it makes no difference. So I just wanted to point out that I'm just 100% parent choice on this. So thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I have Tim iPhone. If you could please unmute, state your full name and address before your comments.
My name is Jennifer Gula. I live at 92 Northeast Drive in Harwich. I have a son at the middle school. I want to thank Dr. Carpenter and the Monomoy staff for the incredible job they have done to keep our kids safe during the pandemic. My family agrees with Dr. Carpenter's recommendation for masking to begin the school year and to be re-examined throughout the year. If my child could save any child from being hospitalized, he would wear a mask. I feel it is my family's obligation. We as a community should be looking out for one another and the immunocompromised students and teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Taryn Derling, please unmute, state your full name and address.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Taryn Derling. I live in East Harwich on Nickerson Road. I didn't prepare a statement. I just wanted to state the record that I agree with the majority of everyone's speeches tonight. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I don't usually do public speaking. So, and like I said, I didn't prepare a statement. So I just wanted to do my due diligence and go on the record that I am for parental choice. And like I said, I didn't have a statement. So that's all I really needed to say.
Thank you, Taryn.
Thank you.
And I see Mark Russell. Could you please unmute, state your full name and address? Did we lose Mark?
No, you might want to lose me. That's okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, no, I just wanted to state first, I applaud the.
Wait, Mark, could you do full name and address, please?
Okay, I'm sorry, Mark Russell, Jessica's Way, Harwich. Have one student who's a rising sophomore coming into the junior year and one who's a recent graduate. And longtime member of the Harwich school community. I applaud this forum and I applaud the opportunity for everyone to speak and that everyone can kind of voice their opinion. And obviously this is a divisive issue. What I'd like to see is the same measure of advocacy for children applied to their educational achievement as it has been applied tonight or voiced tonight with regard to their autonomy and the parents' kind of commitment, because I think that commitment really crosses all our borders, and maybe we can delve that into something different in the next year when this is beyond COVID. But with regard to COVID, we're stuck with it. And for now, our job is still to advocate and educate for our children. As far as the legal and constitutional rights, look, the United States Supreme Court just ruled in the last 3 weeks that a public university can require vaccination for its students. Vaccination is a far higher threshold than masking, okay? Courts have repeatedly upheld that that schools can uphold uniforms, okay? Students can't wear hats in classes, okay? They have to wear certain clothes, okay? We all have to wear certain clothes, okay? All that's required by law, and yet we don't complain. So let's not talk about the legality and illegality of wearing a mask with regard to public health. We know that smoking in public is not allowed because it puts a risk to others. Okay. But with regard to everything that we need to do to get our kids back in the classroom, okay, the public schools' primary charter is to educate all students. And if that requires that some students whose parents and maybe the students don't want to wear masks, I'm not sure any student wants to wear a mask, okay, requires the obligation to wear a mask, then so be it, if it serves the greater purpose of educating everyone. And I'll leave it that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Is anybody else wanting to speak this evening? Give just a moment. Cape Cod 2, can you unmute, state your full name and your address?
Hi, I'm Craig F. I'm from Main Street, Harwich.
I'm sorry, Craig, what's your last name?
It's Florence. I live on Main Street in Harwich.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to voice my support for the school committee and the superintendent. I know that you guys have put in a lot of effort and a lot of work, that you have been carefully following the facts and the medical science. I've heard a lot of misinformation this evening. It's unfortunate. And I hope that you don't feel pressured by this. I've noticed that this has become a political issue, which I think is very disheartening considering that it's an issue of our children's safety. And it's pretty clear that if it's a question of choice, one person's choice can affect somebody else and somebody else's freedom, somebody else's health. And I think that we really need to step back and again, follow the science, follow the facts. There is voluminous studies now internationally. Even if you just read through the information that you all provided, the CDC has provided, 40 some odd different studies. To say that there's not as ridiculous, there is, there are a few common pieces of misinformation. These are easily dispelled or debunked, but are continuing to be shared and spread online and making their way into these meetings. And I know that everybody, feels passionate about this. We all want what's best for our kids. I can't wrap my head around the idea of I guess not caring about your neighbors or your neighbors' children. This is, it's blowing my mind as somebody who's grown up here. I lived here all my life. I never, I never thought that the community or parts of the community could turn their back on others in this way, or just not really care. Again, I just wanted to lend my voice in support of your initiative. I think that it's been well thought out. Obviously, it's hard in a 3-minute span, in trying to make sense of everything you hear from everybody, all these different voices. None of us, I'm assuming, are really, have all the information right here at hand. But I know that these decisions aren't made lightly. I fully trust you guys, and I know that you have the kids' best interests at heart. And I hope that as a community we can kind of come together and look out for one another and put aside this kind of misinformation and this nonsense. Really, it's nonsense, and it's a little bit embarrassing, honestly. But again, thank you so much for letting me share. And I look forward to this new school year. My kids are very excited to get back, and hopefully this can be safe for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, Craig. Is there anybody else who would like to speak their public comment tonight? Sarah Swain, could you please unmute and state your full name and address?
Hi, yeah, Sarah Swain, Cora Nickerson Road in Harwich.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody who has worked in the schools. And I wasn't planning on saying anything. I've just been listening, but I did want to show my support for the plan going into the school year. And also just add that, you know, masking and this whole thing is not easy on anybody. And there's been some comments that, you know, putting a mask on equals living in fear. And I'll speak for our family where we do it out of love, and we do it out of love for our fellows in our community. Have our people who may not do as well as we may with the virus. And I know that I have 3 kids in the school system, and I know that they feel the same way. Even my 8-year-old, he does it because he cares about other people, and it is that empathy part of it. And does it stink? Yeah, it stinks for all of us. But you know, I agree with following the science, and the best science out there is pointing to you guys are on the right track. And until we know better, you know, we will, you know, or things change. We applaud your efforts and just wish everybody the best out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so it is after 8 and I've done a few last calls and the hands kept popping up. So I'm going to do a final last call for anybody who would like to speak up. All right, so seeing none, this is a school committee meeting, so we do have to adjourn. But before we do take that chance to adjourn, I want to take a minute and thank everyone who attended and participated. I saw at one point we had over 119 participants, so I think that was fantastic for everyone to listen in. And again, if you missed the first half, or if you want to share the information with anybody, this was recorded and it will be posted on our website tonight, possibly tomorrow morning, but it will be posted. I also want to just commend those parents that, and everyone, not just the parents, but who took the time to speak up. And many of you spoke up saying, I'm not very good at public speaking and I'm nervous, and everyone did a fantastic job. I'm not very good at public speaking. I'm not a big fan of this myself, but it's what we do for our kids. So I think everyone did a great job expressing their thoughts and their concerns. And I just want to thank everyone. And I know the school committee appreciates hearing from all of you. Again, we're not able to comment or answer any questions this evening because it's a legal school committee meeting where we have no discussion item. So just so you know that we're not ignoring any comments or questions. So we do appreciate everyone's time and dedication to your children and all of the students and the staff at Monomoy. So thank you for that. And on that note, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Osceola. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Games. And so we will do a roll call vote to adjourn. I believe so Mr. Osceola?
Motion to adjourn. Aye, Joe Osceola.
Thank you. Ms. Zebrat Long?
Jackie Zebrat Long, aye.
Thank you. Ms. Stout?
Sharon Stout, aye.
Thank you. Mr. Russell? You find your mute button, Mr. Russell? Aye, there it is.
Terry Russell, aye.
Thank you. And Ms. Games?
Ada Games, aye.
And I believe Ms. Henderson is on here as well.
Meredith Henderson, aye.
Thank you. And I don't believe Ms. Tolley made it this evening, but if she did, I don't see her name. So the chair says aye, and we are adjourned at 8:06 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great evening.